Now, remember the 5th of November, and if you were out in central London last night, you might have had a little help courtesy of protesters wearing Guido Fawkes masks. The Million Mask March, associated with a group called Anonymous, calls itself, quote, the largest global protest in world history, with events in other UK and US cities. Police in London were said to be braced for a turnout of 18,000 and warned of an element intent on criminality. Last night there were 5 arrests. 3 police officers were hospitalised. It didn't look, though, that there were 18,000 on the streets. We sent our Ellie out to speak to marchers and keep an eye on what was going on.
It's just gone 6 o'clock and the Million Mask March is underway. You can see quite a fair number of masks here. The whole thing was organised on social media. Now, Facebook said that 18,000 people were going to come. Early days, but the rain stopped, so we'll see.
Major change is never going to come from a march like this. What it will come from is what it inspires across the country.
Well, we set off from Trafalgar Square, walking down Whitehall to shout of our streets, not the revolution. Not sure where we're going to end up. I would assume just over at Westminster, but I'm not sure this lot know either.
Anonymous is basically saying that enough is enough. If you know the realities of what's going on our earth, you would be joining in.
Free hugs!
Yes, would you like free hugs?
Yeah, go on then.
How you going, my love?
But it did get violent last year, didn't it?
It did get violent, but I wasn't involved with that, unfortunately. Okay. I was a peaceful person, and that's how I will remain.
Well, it's been going for less than an hour, but already you can see a bit of pushing and shoving. Over the other side, there is a line of police on police horses, and the sort of melee, the crowd's been pushing backwards and forwards, and there have already been a few things thrown. Well, it's just gone 7 o'clock and there's a lot of movement just a moment ago. A lot of protesters running around, a lot of police running around. Protesters shouting, kettle, kettle. They're concerned that they're going to get kettled, i.e. stuck in this area here, not able to move off by the police. 8:45. Sounds a bit daft. We've definitely seen several thousand protesters, but we're not sure exactly where they are, and that seems to be the nature of this whole march. Well, we found them, and now we're on Pall Mall, and certainly a big column of people walking up this way. And is this going to make a difference this march tonight?
I bloody hope so. I'd like it to. I don't think it will, but I want us to see the voices. We don't want to fight, but we're going to have to fight soon.
It's raining. You don't mind the rain?
We're English.
Well, there was a flurry of activity and suddenly the police arrived and quite literally blocked the road. The protesters are on the other side. There have been some shouts that the kettle's on, but I imagine that's not the kettle being on in a good way. Okay, it's just gone 9 o'clock and the protesters were told they had to stop protesting after 9 o'clock. That's what seems to be happening here. Police slowly moving people away. You can see Buckingham Palace just in the background. So quite what happens next, we're not really sure yet.
In the end, it didn't take long to clear them. But elsewhere, there were small pockets of violence, and 3 police officers were injured, needing hospital treatment. At least 50 arrests were made, mainly for public order offences. And some of the protesters were disappointed with how it turned out.
Come down and have a ruckus with the police. It's not about that. It's about making a statement and saying we're not happy. We're not happy with what's going on.
Do you think tonight will have made any difference?
Unfortunately, it won't. No, of course it won't.
Oh, it's not really a march, is it? It's just people standing around in the corner.
I think they're scattered around and they haven't got together. Because if they did get together, then it would have been a revolution probably. But I think the weather's put everyone off, to be honest.
Very British approach to revolution, the weather. We're joined now by Adam Clifford of the Class War Party. He was at last night's demonstration. We had him on the programme before the election campaign, during the election campaign itself. What was last night's march against?
It was against a lot of things, really. Austerity, the state that London's in. I mean, the desperation of the people. There's a lot of homeless people at the moment. I mean, that's off the scale at the moment, and I myself am actually homeless at the moment. So yeah, so I feel very I salute the guys that went out last night. But I mean, It was boring. It was such a police display, a military march. You know, nothing could really happen.
Are you worried that this whole movement is running out of steam because there weren't that many people there last night?
Well, no, it's just the sort of crunch down. Really, it's just the police. I mean, there was as many police as there was protesters last night, and you know, in Trafalgar Square, it was like, you know, all these sections were being read out that, you know, you couldn't cover up, and it was police state.
But that was because they
1984.
couldn't find any of the organisers to deal with in advance.
Well, I mean, it's anonymous, so there are no.
So that's what.
Yeah, that's what the thing is.
Is there? Have you undermined yourselves by being a bit unfocused? I mean, there were so many different protesters on different issues last night. I was looking about the general concept of being against capitalism. You mentioned homelessness as well. Animal rights were one. What's happening to South Korean dogs was another. Paedophiles. That kind of is there not a danger that you're sort of firing on too many fronts?
No, I think they all this stuff crosses over. I think it's a march of the underdogs, really. It's the people that are the other side of the fence that are really feeling it. You know, London's in this kind of state at the moment. It's become Victorian again. You've got the super rich and you've got the super poor. So, I mean, what are we meant to do? What are we meant to do?
You say it's the march of the underdogs. A number of people were tweeting, though, who watched it, just members of the public. One said, nice to see anti-capitalists queuing patiently at McDonald's while on their iPhones.
Well, I mean, there was this.
They're underdogs.
Well, I mean, yeah, we are underdogs actually. So, but we couldn't do anything. We could not do anything last night with the police out in full scale, displaying all their techniques, doing all their dances up and down and all that sort of stuff with all their armour and guns and tasers and all that sort of business. Really.
Explain what is the purpose of the mask?
Well, I mean, it's the bottom line is, say you have a job, you're trying to get by, and you don't believe that this is a democracy or something that's not fair. You could go out into the street and go onto a protest and basically be profiled. There's this whole thing of joint enterprise now, so you could be picked up a few days after maybe the event just for going. Maybe you didn't actually do anything. Maybe you didn't do anything violent, and then you're, you know, named, shamed, and framed, and all the rest of it, and probably, you know, lose the basic privileges that you've actually got.
We've covered these demonstrations in years gone by. There were some pretty huge ones that have taken place. Last year seemed to be a little bit smaller. I mean, for Guy Fawkes night, I would suggest it was a bit of a damp squib.
Yeah, it was boring. I mean, I went home early.
I
don't think that these protests that have maybe worked in the past will work again in the future. I think there'll have to be new protests. I think that's the way it will have to go.
Does the violence help by drawing attention, or does it make it easier for your protest to be dismissed? I mean, throwing fireworks at the police horses, for example. You know how much the British love animals. That's not guaranteed.
Well, I love animals too, but you have to take a different approach with this whole situation with animals and what they're trained to do. I mean, charge at crowds. That's the bottom line.
They weren't charging at crowds last night.
A little bit last night, a little bit. Not on this.
They were simply round Buckingham Palace, and some people threw firecrackers at them. Was that a wise thing to do?
Oh, well, I don't know about wise, but I mean, I've seen such police brutality. I've seen police knock girls around and all sorts of things, and I have no faith in the police force.
So why take it out on the horse?
Why are we going on about a horse when this is actually
well, just because fireworks were thrown and smoke grenades at them too.
Well, I wasn't actually there at that bit, so
the question I'm asking you is
whether
this does your case. Does it draw attention and you therefore get coverage and people look at what you're protesting, or does it make it easier for people just to dismiss you? That was my question.
Well, I don't think the people that are actually on this march fighting for this particular cause really care about being dismissed, because, you know, I mean, this is a bit of a circus, this is a spectacle, the media is a whole circus. We know what the media can do to us, that's the bottom line. So, you know, so we just carry on. We carry on fighting for what we believe in.
Is this getting anywhere?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, you said...
Well, from your point of view.
No, but I'm interested.
What are you doing?
I think we should let him...
I was interested that you said...
listen.
I was interested you said the protests might not have been working recently. I mean, that's what you said. Would you say it's getting anywhere? Is it achieving what you wanted?
I don't think the one last night did, but I think some other protests have actually worked. Raise a bit of an awareness, and actually potentially could lead to a bigger thing that could change things for a lot of people. Yeah, sure.
Well, I remember thinking this in about 2010, 2011, when those student protests were happening, particularly around tuition fees, and you felt, is this a moment? Is this when the Conservative Party in particular, and obviously the Lib Dems, are going to feel the effect of this public anger that's brewing on the streets? It didn't happen because most people don't feel it, and completely fair enough.
Most
for some people.
Who's most people?
Well, voters.
The people who vote. In May we had an election. That's how we find out what people think.
Okay, yeah. So you're talking about people that believe in the establishment. Works well for you, sweetheart. Okay, doesn't work.
Thank you
well
for patronising me. Well, I'd like to ask a question.
All right,
you kept talking about how it was very boring last night.
Yeah, it was very
boring. We couldn't do anything. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but my guess is that you were saying at this point what you really would have liked was lots of violence, attacking police officers and damaging public property and private property. Is that what you would have preferred? Is that your anything?
How did women get the vote? Have you seen the Suffragettes film? It's a crap film, but I mean, violence does work sometimes. Unfortunately, okay?
The point is that women at the time didn't have the vote, whereas you do have the vote. And what we actually really need is for the huge numbers of young people, particularly young people and from poorer families who don't vote. We need to get those.
What do you know about poor families? What do you know about poor? No, I mean, because you don't know.
Well, I'm just a sweetheart, aren't I? Or a word you caused me before we came on air, something rather ruder than that we can't say on air.
You can shame me if you want, sweetheart.
What we need is to get young people to vote, not young people to go around smashing up central London.
I have a feeling this isn't going to go any further, so we'll leave it there.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for
your
time again.
Thank you.